Hi, this is Danger Kelly with the Lose and Strike King Pro Staff, and I have just been chased off the water by severe weather. Fishing was fantastic until then, but it gives me a minute here to sit down and maybe talk to you a little bit about how I set up my spinner baits for spring. And I essentially divide them into two groups. The first group would be the stained to muddy water group, and the second group is really the clear water to what I consider summer water conditions. I further subdivide them between top of the water column and bottom of the water column, and I accomplish that through using different brands of spinnerbait. So for my top of the water spinnerbaits, I use the KVD Finesse spinnerbait, and I think this is fantastic because I throw this in shallow water, I throw it into cover, I throw it, generally less than 10 feet. You'll see me fishing this bait. I can control it in the water column, keep it up, and if I do want to let it sink, it sinks rather slowly, but I can get it down to 6, 8, 10 feet, without too much of a delay. So I really like this spinnerbait in the shallower water. It's got a great skirt. It's got a lot of fluorescent chartreuse in there. It's got green. It's got blue, and it's a very natural looking bait. When I want to get to the bottom of the water column in much deeper water, if I want to fish the bait in 15 to 20 feet of water, bounce off of rocks, roll it over sunken stumps, all the things that you see in a traditional reservoir lake, I tend to fish the Strike King Premier Plus, and this is a fantastic bait. It has less of a flutter on the downward stroke, but it fishes really, really well at depth. And I fish these baits all year long, but in the spring they're particularly effective. And one of the things I think that makes my spinnerbait so effective is essentially the variation that I use setting them up. And the variation has a very consistent theme, regardless of whether I'm fishing shallow or deep, regardless of whether I'm fishing a more natural color versus a chartreuse. And that is based on what blade and what skirt I'm using on the blade. Now, as I said, like when I'm fishing shallow, I really like the chartreuse sexy shad from the KVD Finesse bait. So I don't change that very often. But what I do change quite often is the actual blade. So, I start out with, this is the stock blade, and it's fantastic. It fishes a wide variety of different conditions. It fishes sun. Typically, if my water is stained muddy and the sun is out, I'm going to throw the gold blade, the gold willow blade, on this bait, and it is all around a fish catching machine. There's no question. But when the conditions begin to change a little bit, like when the sun peeks in behind the clouds and I get into a overcast scenario, I may actually move over and start fishing the brass. And for those of you that have never fished the brass on a spinnerbait before, brass and overcast skies go together in stained to muddy water, and it's a huge. It can really turn on a group of fish that'll watch a gold blade go right by and not think twice about it, and they see that brass and something in that brass flash, they immediately gravitate towards it. So I'm ready with the brass in willow, for example. I'm ready with the brass in a number 5 Indiana blade, just in case the water is so obscure that I need to get a thump to go along with that brass color. If I get into one of those bright overcast days, or if the sun peeks back out, or else I'm fishing the very top of the water column and I want the fish to come up from obscure depths, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually fish a gold Colorado blade. And if I happen to run across an area of really clear water where there's a creek running in or runoff from rain, like today, for example, there's going to be a ton of runoff coming from this rain into the water, and it creates a patch of very clear water. I keep a sexy shad pattern with the original stock silver willow blade on it, and I'll throw that right into where the water is entering the lake, and I'll actually pull it to the terminator where the clear water meets the muddy water. And I think that this right here can be a deal changer for your day. If you're having a tough day and you see that area of 15 to 20 feet of really clear water, throw one of these baits right into where the water is entering that lake and pull it to the terminator, and it may change things irrevocably for your fishing trip. When I'm fishing a little deeper, like I said, things change. I go with the Premier Plus, and here I use the same different blade combinations, but what I tend to do is actually increase the size of the blades. So, here I've got another gold willow, but this is a one size up because I'm going to be down in the water column, so I'm going to need to increase the flash a little bit. I also do a lot of skirt changes. You can see here, I've changed the skirt. I put some white and some green, and I'm looking to match this to specific water clarity, right? I've got a gold Colorado blade on here, so the plan here is in obscure water. I want to creep this over the bottom at a very slow speed, keep that gold Colorado blade spinning. Maybe I get a little bit of flash from the surface, but I definitely get the thump, and I've got this nice white skirt with the chartreuse ends to go and give it it's somewhat compact, but it's really the package that I'm looking for. And I change these skirts all the time. I must have 50 skirts to put on my spinner blades based on all the different conditions that you happen to see in a given day. So, at the end of the day, spinnerbait fishing has become something of a lost art. And the reason is they introduced the chatterbait and so many other new baits, new techniques that you can't use them all. You can't use all the lures in the boat. Like at any given time, in any given month, I probably have 5 or 6 boxes in my boat that I never even open, right? So I understand why the spinnerbait has really gone out of style to some degree, but I think it's sad because this is a fantastic search bait, probably the best search bait. It allows you to search high in the water column. It allows you to search low in the water column. It allows you to make very quick changes for water clarity, for wind conditions, for any number of fishing techniques that you want to employ because you think that maybe a fish is holding on a particular piece of structure or interested in a particular pattern that will either produce a reaction strike or mimic a shad, a lot of different things. So the spinnerbait for me is a core lure. I catch 50% of my fish all year long fishing a spinnerbait in one manner or other. And I'll do more videos. Like right now, this is very spring oriented, but I'll definitely talk about post-spawn, summer, fall spinnerbait fishing, which definitely introduces different colors, sometimes different blades, definitely different weights. Like, when we get into the summer and start fishing at 40 feet deep, for example, we won't be talking about 3/8 ounce spinnerbaits. We'll definitely be stepping up. But for the spring, I fish almost exclusively 3/8 ounce. And the reason is because I fish them always on the same reel. In this particular case, the Team Lose Pro TI reel in 7.5-1 is the only reel that I use to fish these spinnerbaits, right? And the reason is that I want everything to remain consistent throughout my entire repertoire of spinnerbaits. Because if the reels and the rods are the same, I can, get a great deal of casting accuracy, but more than that, I can actually feel the subtle differences of the blade. And that for me is key. If I'm pulling an Indiana blade, it feels different to me than when I'm pulling a Colorado blade. And this matters especially at depth or when I've got a lot of line out. I want to know that blade is spinning, but I also want to be able to change my speed from an absolute slow roll to a very, very high speed. If I'm yo-yoing it off the bottom, for example, I want to know that that blade is spinning during the yo-yo and then it falls gracefully to the bottom and then spins when I pull it back up again. So for that, I need consistency in equipment. So the Pro TI reel is competitive with any bait casting reel in the marketplace. It has great drag system. It has excellent weighting, great braking. I usually run it on 14-pound fluorocarbon. If I'm going to fish deeper in the water, I might back off to 12, but 14 is sort of my go-to fluoro for a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait. And I couple that with only 2 rods. If I'm going to cast, I'm going to put it on the Team Lose Custom Pro Speed Stick in medium at 7 foot. And this allows me to get a lot of flex in the rod when I'm casting. It allows me to load it up. I'm an extremely smooth caster, so I don't like muscling a cast out there. So I like my rod to load up on the cast. So if I'm going to go down a rock wall and throw it diagonally in front of me, or if I'm going to stay way off a cover and throw it back into the covers, just, maybe I'm afraid that the fish might see the boat or something like that. This is my go-to rod, and I absolutely love this rod. I use it every day. But if I'm getting into a scenario where I'm going to fish on the bottom, or I'm going to pitch, especially when I'm going to pitch, I'm going to use the Team Lose Speedstick Pro TI, which is essentially the rod in the same series as the reel that I use. And this rod, I typically use 610 in medium heavy, so I'm not planning on loading it up too much and throwing it. I mean, I can load it if I want to, but it's strong enough that allows me to pitch. So if I'm going to get into cover, for example, and really dissect every single stump, cluster of sticks, bushes that are flooded in the water, maybe a rock pile where I'm going to go right of the rock, left of the rock, throw it onto the bank and drag it gently into the water. I'm going to use this rod because it's highly precision, it's very pitch friendly, and even when I'm casting, it doesn't load up enough to cause me any kind of problems when I'm throwing it 15 yards on a roll cast, and I'm really looking for accuracy more than anything else. So my go-to rods, these two, primarily pitching and shorter casting, and then my longer casting rod. I'm really, really happy with this whole setup. I have been convinced that the spinnerbait was dropped incorrectly by many fishermen, and I encourage you to give it a try. I think that what you're going to find is that you're going to locate fish faster. When you locate those fish, you're going to be able to tool yourself out in such a way that you're going to be able to find bigger fish in the crowd, because it's those fish that are going to respond to the changes that you make to blade, to skirt, to water column, to how you interact with structure, to how you change your technique. I think that this will light your spring fishing on fire, especially when the bite gets tough. So if you have any questions, go ahead and submit those to lose.com or strikeking.com, or you can send them to me at dangerkelly.com. And again, I hope that this helped you, and make sure you stay safe fishing out there. Stay safe at home, especially with everything going on right now with the coronavirus. I'm Danger Kelly with the Lose and Strike King Pro staff. Have a great day.